So here, it's an elbow bump.
Welcome back.
Have a seat. Have a seat, Lawrence. So it's a real pleasure to be able to sit down with Premier King right now at Prince Edward Island. Lots to talk about. Obviously, Islanders have done very well through COVID. Continues to be, of course, something you have to remain vigilant on, but you've done well. The economic recovery is coming. Lots to talk about from continued fight against climate change, where PEI has been a real leader. We're going to chat about some agricultural challenges. We're looking at the housing issues that you're looking at as well, and just continue to be there to give opportunities to Prince Edward Islanders to succeed and continue to contribute to Canada. Toujours un grand plaisir de m'asseoir avec le Premier ministre King pour parler du travail que nous faisons ensemble pour bâtir un avenir meilleur pour les gens de l'île du Prince-Édouard, mais aussi de notre pays. Dennis?
Just a great honor for me to be up here to meet in person again with the Prime Minister and to build on the great relationship that we have made together for Prince Edward Island and for Canada. I believe we have a lot of shared principles. I think Prince Edward Island has set the most aggressive carbon reduction targets in the country, and we're looking forward to working with you and others to meet and exceed those targets, and just to talk about issues of importance to Islanders and Canadians, and just extremely grateful to be back up in person to do this. So thank you, merci.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, how's everyone?
Well, I guess maybe just first off, can you tell us what you and the Prime Minister talked about?
Well, we talked about a number of issues, of course, that are important to Prince Edward Island. We talked about greater investment and quicker response to housing challenges. We talked about our commitment to being carbon neutral by 2040 and the investments that we're going to need in that regard. We talked about our primary industries and what we need to do going forward, and just picked up on the conversation about the CHT and the conversations going on at the COF table and the First Minister's table. So it was nice to be up here. I understand I'm one of the first to be up here in person again. It was nice to do that, and just to build on that good relationship we have.
Well, just on the health transfers, I can ask you first. I know the premiers had asked for a meeting with the Prime Minister prior to the throne speech. Did you get a commitment today from the Prime Minister that meeting will happen before the throne speech later this month?
We didn't talk about that specifically, but the conversations that we've been having at the COF table, it looks like our meeting will probably take place early in the new year in person with the Prime Minister. So, but he's very much aware of what premiers and provinces are looking for in terms of a long-term investment in healthcare in Canada. And speaking from a PEI perspective, we have many challenges with the recruitment and retention of physicians and healthcare professionals, and anything the federal government can do with consistent funding year over year to help us in that regard is something that we're very open to, and our position hasn't changed from the very beginning on that.
And if I can ask you one more, which is before I pass over to my colleague
Sure.
over there, but the government has promised to hire more staff at the Veterans Affairs Canada office to deal with the backlog of issues facing veterans. I believe most of those would be in Charlottetown. So did the issue of the hiring come up in the meeting, and if it did you get any details on when or how many may be hired for the headquarters in Charlottetown?
We didn't talk about that specifically, but I mean it's a conversation that I've been having on and off with the Minister of Veterans Affairs, of course, who is also the regional minister for Prince Edward Island, Minister Macaulay. Look, I mean the department is of critical importance to Prince Edward Island from an economic and social perspective, and the role that DVA plays in the lives and help to improve the lives of those who serve our country is important. So look, it's not something that we talked about in depth for sure, but the commitment is there. Nobody works harder for veterans, in my knowledge, than Minister Macaulay, so I'm pretty confident they will work that out in the days ahead, and I hope all of those positions will be anchored in Charlottetown, of course.
I want to ask something relatively specific to PEI, but it's the strike at Windsor Salt and the difficulty there. How concerned are you about the possibility of road salt shortage coming into the winter, especially with the ongoing labor dispute?
Well, if you pay a little bit of attention to Prince Edward Island, this is an issue that has been we've been dealing with for about 6 or 8 weeks now, mainly from a much different perspective, and that is that our Department of Transportation and Infrastructure has secured our winter supply of salt prior to the labour challenges, pertaining to the mine. And our issue was it was stored on the waterfront in Summerside, and they didn't want it there, and now we've moved that storage off-site. So we're comfortable for this year. We have secured or procured our needed salt requirement for this year, but obviously anything that would impact us going forward is something that we would keep an eye on and hope we can find resolution to in the near term.
I appreciate the answer and appreciate I will start paying more attention to people.
Well,
picking up what my colleague was talking about, when you sit down with the Prime Minister here in the audience, I mean, any number of issues that you have, you have a finite amount of time here, and the fact that you were insinuating that we may not get a Council of the Federation meeting soon. I mean, how willing do you have as a partner in that room to really tackle all the issues in PEI when you consider how many issues there are in different provinces this Prime Minister has to deal with? I mean, give me a gauge how receptive he was to being able to work with you.
Well, I have been about 30 months in my job as Premier of PEI, and the relationship that we have built with the Prime Minister, I think is good or better than anyone in the country. I was just actually talking with my staff after a meeting, and they were very impressed with how up to speed and dialed in the Prime Minister is in our issues. And I think that's also because as a jurisdiction with 4 members of Parliament who we know and work with very closely, there's a pipeline for Prince Edward Island to get the issues to the Prime Minister's office, maybe at a rate that might be a little bit better or easier than many other jurisdictions. So we have a great relationship. The Prime Minister understands the issues that are facing islanders. He knows that he has a willing partner with me. The principles that he's trying to put forward through his government, whether it's a greener environment, a cleaner environment, whether it's changing our labor force, making it more accommodating for new Canadians, etc. Those are principles that he's putting forward from his government, but those are principles that Prince Edward Islanders have been asking us to lobby for a long time as well. So we have a really good relationship here. I think we've gotten a lot done, and I think that will continue into the future. And I've never made any bones about the fact that although we come from different political stripes, I guess, that the issues of importance to Prince Edward Island are very, very closely aligned with what this Prime Minister and his government wants to accomplish.
In terms of his scheduled parliamentary calendar as well, he's on the 22nd, he's going to D.C. next week. Is there any level of disappointment in your mind, despite you being able to get some face time with him now, that there won't be a bigger meeting, that there won't be, a more fulsome discussion with all of the premiers for some time?
Yeah, well, I mean, you always want to be able to sit down at the table to get these issues over the line, to have a full discussion. But, we have probably the premiers who serve, particularly during this time of COVID-19, I think we've had almost 30 meetings with the Prime Minister, 30 First Ministers meetings. I used to serve Premier Pat Binns in my former role before I get into politics on the front lines myself, and we would go through a couple of years without having a meeting with a Prime Minister. So I think we're very fortunate that we've been able to utilize the COVID-19 health challenges to rally together and to have that conversation all the time. But I do feel these current group of premiers and this Prime Minister have met very, very regularly, and I think he's very in tune to what our needs and asks are. But it would be wonderful to have that conversation in person finally and to hammer out some of these issues we've been dealing with at that table for a while. Sure.
Talk about issues facing islanders. PEI has the highest inflation rate of any province in the country. Last month it was 6.3%. I'm wondering if that came up in your conversation with the Prime Minister, or if there's anything that you see on the horizon that actually may start bringing that down as opposed to what we expect to see, which is that number going up.
It's certainly, it's a growing concern for me as Premier, but it's something I hear every day in Prince Edward Island, whether it's the price of fuel or the price of goods at the grocery store, for example. You know, we have been singularly focused, essentially, on trying to get through this health pandemic, and all of the measures we've undertaken together as governments have really helped us get through that. But it's also had some, you know, unknown consequences connected to it, and part of that is the cost of living and inflation. So I think we have to take a look at that as a province, but we need to probably take a look at it in a bigger, you know, a bigger scheme with all of the premiers and the Prime Minister as well. But it is, I think, quickly replacing COVID-19 as the primary concern for regular, everyday islanders. They see that in their pocketbook. So we need to act quickly on that. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much. This was wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Nice to talk to people in person, yeah. So.
All the people who sent me the question on the salt mine.
Yeah, well, I was...
That they should also get up to speed as well. Not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but...
We're probably the only place in Canada where the road salt is discussed at length in the legislature because of where it's stored.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Take care. Have a good weekend, everybody.